Chapter 5, Part 13 of The Legends of the Jews, Volume 1. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Scott Sherris, Atlanta, Georgia, USA. The Legends of the Jews, Volume 1, by Rabbi Louis Ginzberg. The death and burial of Sarah. While Abraham was engaged in the sacrifice, Satan went to Sarah and appeared to her in the figure of an old man, very humble and meek, and said to her, "Dost thou not know all that Abraham has done unto thine own son this day? He took Isaac and built an altar, slaughtered him, and brought him up as a sacrifice. Isaac cried and wept before his father, but he looked not at him, neither did he have compassion upon him." After saying these words to Sarah, Satan went away from her, and she thought him to be an old man from amongst the sons of men who had been with her son. Sarah lifted up her voice and cried bitterly, saying, "O my son Isaac, my son, oh that I had this day died instead of thee! It grieves me for thee. After that I have reared thee and have brought thee up, my joy is turned into mourning over thee. In my longing for a child I cried and prayed till I bore thee at 90. Now hast thou served this day for the knife and the fire. But I console myself, it being the word of God, and thou didst perform the command of thy God. For who can transgress the word of our God, and in whose hands is the soul of every living creature? Thou art just, O Lord our God, for all thy works are good and righteous. For I also rejoice with the word which thou didst command, and while mine eye weepeth bitterly, my heart rejoiceth. And Sarah laid her head upon the bosom of one of her handmaids, and she became as still as stone. She rose up afterward, and went about making inquiries concerning her son, till she came to Hebron, and no one could tell her what had happened to her son. Her servants went to seek him in the house of Shem and Eber, and they could not find him, and they sought throughout the land, and he was not there. And behold, Satan came to Sarah in the shape of an old man, and said unto her, I spoke falsely unto thee, for Abraham did not kill his son, and he is not dead. And when she heard the word, her joy was so exceedingly violent that her soul went out through joy. When Abraham with Isaac returned to Beersheba, they sought for Sarah and could not find her, and when they made inquiries concerning her, they were told that she had gone as far as Hebron to seek them. Abraham and Isaac went to her to Hebron, and when they found that she was dead, they cried bitterly over her, and Isaac said, O my mother, how hast thou left me, and whither hast thou gone? O whither hast thou gone, and how hast thou left me? And Abraham and all his servants wept and mourned over her a great and heavy mourning, even that Abraham did not pray, but spent his time in mourning and weeping over Sarah. And indeed he had great reason to mourn his loss, for even in her old age Sarah had retained the beauty of her youth and the innocence of her childhood. The death of Sarah was a loss not only for Abraham and his family, but for the whole country. So long as she was alive, all went well in the land. After her death, confusion ensued. The weeping, lamenting, and wailing over her going hence was universal, and Abraham, instead of receiving consolation, had to offer consolation to others. He spoke to the mourning people, and said, My children, take not the going hence of Sarah too much to heart. There is one event unto all, to the pious and the impious alike. I pray you now, give me a burying place with you, not as a gift, but for money. In these last few words, Abraham's unassuming modesty was expressed. God had promised him the whole land, yet when he came to bury his dead, he had to pay for the grave, and it did not enter his heart to cast aspersions upon the ways of God. In all humility he spake to the people of Hebron, saying, I am a stranger and a sojourner with you. Therefore spake God to him, and said, Thou didst bear thyself modestly. As thou livest, I will appoint thee Lord and Prince over them. To the people themselves he appeared an angel, and they answered his words, saying, Thou art a prince of God among us. In the choice of our sepulchres bury thy dead, among the rich if thou wilt, or among the poor if thou wilt." Abraham first of all gave thanks to God for the friendly feeling shown to him by the children of Heth, and then he continued his negotiations for the cave of Machpelah. He had long known the peculiar value of this spot. Adam had chosen it as a burial place for himself. He had feared his body might be used for idolatrous purposes after his death. He therefore designated the cave of Machpelah as the place of his burial, and in the depths his corpse was laid, so that none might find it. When he interred Eve there, he wanted to dig deeper, because he scented the sweet fragrance of paradise, near the entrance to which it lay, but a heavenly voice called to him, "Enough!" Adam himself was buried there by Seth, and until the time of Abraham the place was guarded by angels, who kept a fire burning near it perpetually, so that none dared approach it and bury his dead therein. Now it happened on the day when Abraham received the angels in his house, and he wanted to slaughter an ox for their entertainment, that the ox ran away, and in his pursuit of him Abraham entered the cave of Machpelah. There he saw Adam and Eve stretched out upon couches, candles burning at the head of their resting places, while a sweet scent pervaded the cave. Therefore Abraham wished to acquire the cave of Machpelah from the children of Heth, the inhabitants of the city of Jebus. They said to him, "We know that in time to come God will give these lands unto thy seed, and now do thou swear a covenant with us that Israel shall not wrest the city of Jebus from its inhabitants without their consent." Abraham agreed to the condition, and he acquired the field from Ephron, in whose possession it lay. This happened the very day on which Ephron had been made the chief of the children of Heth, and he had been raised to the position so that Abraham might not have to have dealings with a man of low rank. It was of advantage to Abraham too, for Ephron at first refused to sell his field, and only the threat of the children of Heth to depose him from his office, unless he fulfilled the desire of Abraham, could induce him to change his disposition. Dissembling deceitfully, Ephron then offered to give Abraham the field without compensation, but when Abraham insisted on paying for it, Ephron said, "My lord, hearken unto me, a piece of land worth 400 shekels of silver, what is that betwixt me and thee?" showing only too well that the money was of the greatest consequence to him. Abraham understood his words, and when he came to pay for the field, he weighed out the sum agreed upon between them in the best of current coin. A deed, signed by 4 witnesses, was drawn up, and the field of Ephron which was in Machpelah, the field and the cave which was therein, were made sure unto Abraham and his descendants for all times. The burial of Sarah then took place, amid great magnificence and the sympathy of all. Shem and his son Eber, Abimelech king of the Philistines, Aner, Eshcol, and Mamre, as well as the great king of the land, followed her bier. A 7 days' mourning was kept for her, and all the inhabitants of the land came to condole with Abraham and Isaac. When Abraham entered the cave to place the body of Sarah within, Adam and Eve refused to remain there, because, they said, "As it is, we are ashamed in the presence of God on account of the sin we committed, and now we shall be even more ashamed on account of your good deeds." Abraham soothed Adam. He promised to pray to God for him, that the needs for shame be removed from him. Adam resumed his place, and Abraham entombed Sarah, and at the same time he carried Eve, resisting, back to her place. 1 year after the death of Sarah, Abimelech, king of the Philistines, died too, at the age of 193 years. His successor upon the throne was his 12-year-old son Ben-Melech, who took the name of his father after his accession. Abraham did not fail to pay a visit of condolence at the court of Abimelech. Lot also died about this time, at the age of 142. His sons, Moab and Ammon, both married Canaanitish wives. Moab begot a son, and Ammon had 6 sons, and the descendants of both were numerous exceedingly. Abraham suffered a severe loss at the same time in the death of his brother Nahor, whose days ended at Haran, when he had reached the age of 172 years. The Legends of the Jews, Volume 1, by Rabbi Louis Ginzberg. Eliezer's Mission. The death of Sarah dealt Abraham a blow from which he did not recover. So long as she was alive, he felt himself young and vigorous, but after she had passed away, old age suddenly overtook him. It was he himself who made the plea that age be betrayed by suitable signs and tokens. Before the time of Abraham, an old man was not distinguishable externally from a young man, and as Isaac was the image of his father, it happened frequently that father and son were mistaken for each other, and a request meant for the one was preferred to the other. Abraham prayed therefore that old age might have marks to distinguish it from youth, and God granted his petition, and since the time of Abraham, the appearance of men changes in old age. This is one of the 7 great wonders that have occurred in the course of history. The blessing of God did not forsake Abraham in old age either. That it might not be said it had been granted to him only for the sake of Sarah, God prospered him after her death too. Hagar bore him a daughter, and Ishmael repented of his evil ways and subordinated himself to Isaac. And as Abraham enjoyed undisturbed happiness in his family, so also outside, in the world. The kings of the east and the west eagerly besieged the door of his house, in order to derive benefit from his wisdom. From his neck a precious stone was suspended, which possessed the power of healing the sick who looked upon it. On the death of Abraham, God attached it to the wheel of the sun. The greatest blessing enjoyed by him, and by none beside except his son Isaac and Jacob the son of Isaac, was that the evil inclination had no power over him, so that in this life he had a foretaste of the future world. But all these divine blessings showered upon Abraham were not undeserved. He was clean of hand and pure of heart, one that did not lift up his soul unto vanity. He fulfilled all the commands that were revealed later, even the rabbinical injunctions, as, for instance, the one relating to the limits of a Sabbath day's journey, wherefore his reward was that God disclosed to him the new teachings, which he expounded daily in the heavenly academy. But one thing lacked to complete the happiness of Abraham, the marriage of Isaac. He therefore called his old servant Eliezer unto himself. Eliezer resembled his master not only externally in his appearance, but also spiritually. Like Abraham, he possessed full power over the evil inclination, and like the master, the servant was an adept in the law. Abraham spake the following words to Eliezer: I am stricken in age, and I know not the day of my death. Therefore prepare thyself, and go into my country and to my kindred, and fetch hither a wife for my son. Thus he spake by reason of the resolution he had taken immediately after the sacrifice of Isaac on Moriah, for he had there said within himself that if the sacrifice had been executed, Isaac would have gone hence childless. He was even ready to choose a wife for his son from among the daughters of his 3 friends, Aner, Eshcol, and Mamre, because he knew them to be pious, and he did not attach much importance to aristocratic stock. Then spake God to him, and said, Concern thyself not about a wife for Isaac. One has already been provided for him. And it was made known to Abraham that Milcah, the wife of his brother Nahor, childless until the birth of Isaac, had then been remembered by God and made fruitful. She bore Bethuel, and he in turn, at the time of Isaac's sacrifice, begot the daughter destined to be the wife of Isaac. Mindful of the proverb, Even if the wheat of thine own place be darnel, use it for seed, Abraham determined to take a wife for Isaac from his own family. He argued that as any wife he chose would have to become a proselyte, it would be best to use his own stock, which had the first claim upon him. Eliezer now said to his master, Peradventure no woman will be willing to follow me unto this land. May I then marry my own daughter to Isaac? No, replied Abraham, thou art of the accursed race, and my son is of the blessed race, and curse and blessing cannot be united. But beware thou that thou bring not my son again into the land from whence I came. For if thou broughtest him thither again, it were as though thou tookest him to hell. God who sets the heavens in motion, he will set this matter right too. And he that took me from my father's house, and that spake unto me, and that swore unto me in Haran, and at the covenant of the pieces, that he would give this land unto my seed, He shall send his excellent angel before thee, and thou shalt take a wife for my son from thence." Eliezer then swore to his master concerning the matter, and Abraham made him take the oath by the sign of the covenant. End of chapter 5, part 13.